Hello, everybody. I'm a practicing therapist and a doctoral student of psychology. Today, I wanted to go over signs an avoidant isn't ready for a healthy relationship. This was requested. The first one is actually something that we had discussed a little bit on our group, but it's also just something that comes up a lot that I see. Often, instead of being very direct and honest, which a lot of avoidants are, they actually are very evasive and they tend to lie often. Now, some avoidants might just be in the middle where sometimes they lie, sometimes they don't. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about someone who often lies because they don't want confrontation. I shared this a little bit because it was something I never struggled with, and nor did my significant other. Both of us we're considered people that's very honest, very direct, and to such a point where sometimes we would have to reel it in and try and say it in a better way. It's something I've been working on and something he's struggled with as well in the past. And a lot of avoidants I've worked with for many years are more often than not very direct and honest. But I've always noticed the ones that are less honest are the ones that are more difficult in terms of healing. And the reason is because they're very evasive, which is hard for them to actually target some of the behaviors that they struggle with because they're not being honest with people around them or their therapist. Like me, for example, they're not honest with their loved ones. And because of that, people don't know how to help them. And that can be very difficult. And often it's also that they avoid conflict. So sometimes people don't know they're unhappy and then it gets blindsided. So this is a little more common with fearful avoidance, but it can happen with dismissive avoidance as well. The next one is they don't work on other parts of their life. So this is something that's very interesting because a lot of people get confused about this one. So a person on the comment section asked me, why do avoidants come into therapy? A lot of them are they seeking like attachment issue help particularly? Not really. Interesting enough, they're not. They might be aware they have these issues. I have cases that I'm thinking about right now where they actually kind of know this is the issue, but they don't want to work on it. And then some of them have no clue, but they're coming to see me for other reasons that are usually adjacent to attachment issues, such as anger, such as some perfectionism, struggles with other things that you guys have seen on my profile, etc. And often they heal indirectly, which is actually one of the most common ways that avoidants start healing, even in therapy. I'm sorry, my computer there's so many pop-ups. I'm sorry, you keep hearing those noises. But often you can do this as well. So an example is if you can prompt them and see if they're willing to change other things in their life. Anger is a really common and a very good example because this is something I do daily, right? They might struggle with impatience, anger, very specific, sometimes very perfectionist, so they get angry if things are not a certain way. And they might recognize that this pushes people away, not because they're suddenly ready to get married, but they just realize that this can be disruptive. A lot of times it helps if it's disruptive for their job. A lot of times that's how they want to heal because they're very careful about their job. So they might say that I've been too angry. It's getting in the way of meeting with my boss is noticing, etc. And so they start noticing this, and eventually they start realizing I've been angry with my wife, I've been angry with my husband, whatever, whichever it is, their situation, and they start slowly healing those things. So anything small, they might even want to start working on their health. They might want to start targeting their tobacco usage. And so think about if they're working at all on other parts of their life, this is a sign that at least there's some willingness to heal something. If they're not working on anything, they might not be ready for a healthy relationship at this moment, okay? The next one, actually, before we go to the next one, let me give some examples of some things they could be working on that fits in this category. Emotional regulation, accountability, anger, compromise, sharing more about themselves counts, fitness, eating habits, use addictions. A lot of avoidants have use issues. And any of the money issues, they might be a little more lenient with money. These are common issues that avoidants struggle with, but they don't realize it's part of their attachment style. And so if you heal those things a little bit, they start facing a lot of the other things slowly without even realizing it. The next one is holding grudges without acknowledgement that this might be seen too negatively. Fearful avoidants struggle with grudges, but dismissive avoidants, they have their own version of this as well, and I'm going to explain it. So I actually had this issue, but I didn't know it was a grudge, and I used to be avoidant. So this is more common with a dismissive avoidant. What I did was I would just remember something someone said to me, and I would almost like subconsciously hold it against them. So like it's not healthy at all. I'm not like this anymore, and I didn't know I was doing this. If somebody did something that made me uncomfortable, I would slowly like almost keep track of that without realizing it. And each time I would distance myself more and more and more by just the little things. And I never said anything. Now I'm not like this at all, but it's embarrassing to say because I didn't even realize how odd that is. Where, for example, if I have a friend and she made a joke that I didn't like, because I've always been a person, I don't understand jokes, so it's probably not her fault, right? But I didn't say anything. I just remembered, okay, she's that type of person. Maybe I should limit sharing things a little bit with her because then she'll make a joke at my expense, right? And I never thought of it in like an emotional way. I thought about it. I thought this was like logical. Like I was like, okay, logically, because she did this, I should do this to make sure that this friendship is in that right direction because I may have been sharing too much. Now I realize that's not good. That's not right for this friendship. I didn't think about it from me versus her. I thought of it like the actual friendship. I was like, okay, I was wrong about this friendship. I need to fix this. And I didn't realize that that was actually a version of a grudge. And so dismissive avoidants typically do it the way I just explained it. They don't really realize it. Fearful avoidants, what they actually do is they actually ruminate on it. And so they also might not realize it's a grudge and they do hold it against you, but it's more of a rumination. So it might be feeling more negative. And so actually with fearful avoidance, they might actually tell you, do you remember you did A, B, and C last Christmas? And they might think, well, that's the reason why I haven't told you this. Do you remember this? And this is something that some people did a lot of fearful avoidance struggle with, and they don't realize it right away. So what I mean is if a person has some acknowledgement a little bit that maybe this is something that needs adjusting or they start realizing it's a pattern they have, it can help them realize, okay, this is time to maybe they're more ready for a healthy relationship. Because one of the first things, well, there's a lot of things that happened when I healed, but that's something I might never share fully because it's very detailed and it was really hard. But one thing is this grudge thing, which was like something, there's a lot of things, right? The stubborn, whatever it is, independence, etc. But this grudge thing that I always did in my head, I didn't even know. I've done it ever since I was a kid. This was something that I started being aware of without really anyone telling me, even though people have always told me in their own way, but I didn't understand it. But I finally started understanding in my own way. Usually with avoidance, it might not go as cleanly as that if they are not fully on their healing journey, because I really put a lot of effort into healing. But if they're slowly starting to be a little more healthy, they might acknowledge, oh, maybe you didn't mean it like that. Or maybe they said, you did this last year on Christmas, and you can say, hey, I never meant it like that. They'll be like, oh, I didn't even realize that. Okay, that makes sense. Like they start thinking, okay, it's not like the way I perceived it, or it's not that deep. Honestly. Okay, the next one is not making any progress since the two of you have been talking. Even if progress is small, if there's no sign they're not quite ready for a healthy relationship. One of the things that we evaluate often on our consultation calls, or if you email me, is if there's progress. I always talk about it. In fact, some of you guys that I see more regularly, we talk about the progress comparison to last session I saw you, that your relationship has more progress. And the reason is because a lot of people get caught up with the type of progress they expect, and they almost think that there is no progress when in actuality, I've seen avoidance, I see them pretty much every work day. I know what progress looks like. You might not. I do. And so when I mention, sometimes I may say, hey, actually, this progress is usually going to turn into this later. It helps people to feel a little bit better. And so this one, be careful, maybe evaluate it with either me or someone who might know a little bit more, or take time before you cut them off completely and say they're not making any progress. Take time with this one. This one's hard. But if you really feel pretty confident there is no progress, it might be a sign they're not ready for a healthy relationship. And so let's go ahead and summarize and we'll wrap it up. They often lie instead of direct truth. This one means they might not be ready for a healthy relationship. They don't work on other parts of their life. They are holding grudges without any acknowledgement that maybe they've seen it a little too negatively, and they're not making any progress. I hope this video is helpful to somebody. Please like, subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.